Sometimes the beer in front of you is the best one yet. This is Beer in Front. Every week I'll talk to people in and around the beer world and get their stories all about beer. That's Beer in Front, and it's coming up now. Welcome to episode 291 of Beer in Front. I'm your host, Dave Zalatoris, and Beer in Front is a charter member of the Beer Media Group. Doing something a little different today. I'm going to talk kava. Now, kava, this is a drink made from the root of the kava plant, which has been used for years and years and years in the South Pacific for calming social effects. Doesn't give you like a buzz like alcohol or weed. It gives you like a mellow, relaxed feeling that will help take the edge off. So I'm going to talk to Morgan Smith, the CEO of Kalm With Kava, to find out more about this. I'm going to have a kava drink a little later in the show. What I liked about talking with Morgan about this, I've mentioned before, I'm subject to random testing at work, so I could not partake in THC beverages, but something like this I can have. So I wanted to find out more. So big thank you to Morgan Smith for coming on and talking kava. Don't worry, there's a beer that I'm going to talk about on the show later as well. This came out a collaboration between Old Irving in the city of Chicago and Phase 3 out of Lake Zurich, Illinois. They put out a collaboration beer called Pixelated Beezer. That absolutely fantastic beer. So I'm going to review that a little later on in the show as well. So all that plus beer news and everything else coming up on this edition of Beer in Front. In beer and beverage news, Heineken announced plans they're going to cut their workforce globally by almost 6,000 jobs over the next couple of years. This is about 7% of the employees of Heineken worldwide, according to, the typical marketing speak. This is going to improve productivity, reduce costs, and respond to slowing global beer demand. Here's one thing, like reading into the press release on this, that I found interesting. Heineken, they're going to increase focus on artificial intelligence to boost their efficiency. So AI is coming and it's cutting jobs at Heineken. A couple of years ago, I did a video on the ready-to-drink cocktail, the Jack and Coke. This is a collaboration, obviously, between Jack Daniels and Coca-Cola. Now, this has only been available in like mix packs, like a 4-pack, I think it was. Well, now they're going to come out with a 16-ounce, and that's going to be available for single sale in your grocery stores, convenience stores. They're going to lower the alcohol on the bigger format can to 5%. The 12-ounce cans are always at 7%. So if you like Jack and Coke, I thought it was decent. They have it in the regular version and the Coca-Cola Zero version. That's going to be coming out. Look for that in the 16-ounce cans if you just want yourself a little Jack and Coke, or the Lemmy, as I like to call it. On-premise beer sales for Super Bowl weekend were down this year, probably because the game no one really cared about unless you live in Seattle or New England. Draft volume was down 6%. Now, once again, this is at on-premise, so we're talking like breweries, tap rooms. Draft volume was down 6% from last year, and packaging 6.2%. But overall, the month of January was a little bit better for beer, like C-stores, convenience stores, things like that. They were up 5.4% in January. Grocery stores were up a little under 1%. Which is better than being down. So not everything is bad news. Some, beers are getting a little bit better. So hopefully that trend continues. Penrose, now they're a Geneva, Illinois-based brewery. They are now teaming up with the Illinois PGA, Professional Golfers Association, They're going to have three of their beverages in cahoots with the PGA of America, their Illinois Foundation for the official craft beer and hard seltzers. So that's pretty cool. Some of the money that goes from the proceeds of this will go to the Illinois PGA. Their lemon tea up, Looper IPA, and a transfusion seltz up. These are all in collaboration. So that's pretty cool. If you like to golf and you like to drink, you got to check out some stuff from Penrose. Saturday, the 28th of February. If you're in Colorado, you got to head over to Lone Tree's Parker location. They're going to have their second anniversary double down. And if you want to know more about Lone Tree, you should listen to your favorite beer podcast next week, because I'm talking to Lone Tree. I'm going to have their Mexican lager, but definitely if you're in Colorado, you got to head over to the Parker location of Lone Tree Brewing Saturday, February 28th. They've got a ton of stuff happening. Their beers are all great. If you come there, you could get like anniversary glassware. Who doesn't need a new glass? So you could go get yourself a limited edition Lone Tree anniversary glass. That alone is worth going there for. But definitely check them out on the 28th of February. All day, it looks like, between 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. Staying in Colorado, Ska Brewing, they're coming back with their West Coast IPA. That's starting out this week. Wherever you pick up Ska, this is a modern version of the classic IPA, according to the press release, and they use one of my favorite words of all time, a plethora. It's crafted with a plethora of contemporary hops. Just the fact that they use the word plethora, buy the beer. I don't care what the beer tastes like. They use the word plethora. If they could only include the word skullduggery in that, that would be my ultimate dream press release, but they use a plethora of contemporary hops. Ska has been putting out some killer beers for ages. I'm stoked. I'm going to be trying this one fairly soon. So if you're around the distribution area for Ska Brewing, you got to pick up the new West Coast IPA. Lakefront Brewery in Milwaukee, they're announced their 2026 Pink Boot Society collaboration, Straw Barbie. This is a strawberry rhubarb ale. I'm a big fan. I love strawberry rhubarbs, and Wisconsin, I know the one from New Glarus is always great. So I love a strawberry rhubarb ale. I'm going to have to check out Straw Barbie from Lakefront. The big news of the week, and to me, it's good. James Watt has announced the sale of Brewdog. James Watt's a jagoff, and the practices and everything around Brewdog have not been cool. I don't drink their beer on videos or this. There are certain companies I don't touch with the 10-foot pole because you need to treat people better, and good riddance. So, but if you're a fan of Brewdog, I don't yuck anyone's yum. You know, you do you, but Brewdog is up for sale, and hopefully that's good for employees. So I'm sure not all of the employees at Brewdog are evil people like James Watt. So hopefully it rebounds and they become a decent company. All right, welcome back. Kava is a traditional drink made from the root of the kava plant, long used in the South Pacific for its calming social effects. Instead of a buzz like alcohol, kava delivers a mellow, relaxed feeling that can help take the edge off without fogging your head. The taste is earthy and a little funky, but that's part of the ritual. These days, kava bars are popping up as alcohol-free hangouts, giving people a way to unwind, connect, and slow things down without cracking a beer or having alcohol. Today, I'm talking to Morgan Smith, the CEO of Kalm With Kava, that's with a K, to find out more about kava. Morgan, thank you so much for chatting today.
I'm so stoked to be here, man.
Yeah.
It's always fun to talk to people about kava when they haven't had it before or they're kind of interested in another option. And regardless, I'm just stoked to be here and talk to you.
Well, how did you first get introduced to kava, and what was like, okay, this is something special? What was your moment?
Yeah, I was really stressed out. I had a job where I was working 80-hour weeks. I had a very young family, and I went to my doctor. I asked for some help. I was prescribed a benzodiazepine. I took it, and I don't remember what I did the rest of the day. I was driving like coworkers to lunch, and it was an experience that is something I did not want to repeat. Right, especially when you got little kids, you're like, okay, if I have to take them to the hospital or something, like I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, you don't
Right,
want to
and
call in
and
an
I've
Uber. Yeah.
Exactly. And also I wasn't of sound mind, right? So I would have probably just put him in my car and went off to the hospital, right? That's also a bad option. So I needed to find something that was going to help me kind of calm down and get me through that sort of period of my life, right? Which really realistically it was like a 3 or 4 months of just stress, right? And so I didn't need something that was going to be like a long term, 2 years on whatever this medication was kind of a thing. So I looked for all sorts of different options, right? I tried ashwagandha and I tried Macunia pruriens and L-theanine and all sorts of I mean, I tell you, dude, I legit tried probably 15, 20 things. It was crazy. But I found kava, and kava was the one thing that stuck with me. It was the one thing that like I felt in my brain when I took it, and I felt sort of body effects where I was able to kind of just okay, I can melt out and melt into the couch for a few minutes, and it also wasn't something that was going to be physically addictive.
Like before Calm with Kava existed, what wasn't clicking for you? I know you mentioned like prescription drugs, but what wasn't clicking for you at the time?
It was just like I couldn't get in front of anything. That's how it felt. I always felt like there was like an elephant on my chest.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that I haven't felt that since, right? Like I mean I get anxiety often. I'm that kind of a guy where I just one day I wake up and I'm just like, man, I just feel like crap,
Yeah.
right? So I think a lot of things weren't clicking, right? At that moment in life, I was just like, I don't know where to turn. I just don't
Yeah.
know what to do.
Yeah, like, you mentioned anxiety. I suffer from anxiety and depression myself. So, like, would having like a product like, would you take this like as a tea the first thing of your day? Does that help you with getting these symptoms?
So personally, I drink kava at night. So
Okay.
kava is a sedative. It's something that is going to make you a little bit tired. Now I know people that drink it all day. Man, I was in Fiji and we were we were driving around trying to find a place to pound our kava. They have these big pounding machines that pound kava roots into powder. And it was like 9 in the morning, and I was just trying to find a community sort of pounding center, and we stopped in front of this place that we thought was a pounding place, but it wasn't, and there was a mechanic out front, and, he had his hands were just as grimy as humanly possible because he's working on cars in in the island here, and, he goes, "Oh, you're trying to pound kava?" And I think he was very surprised that he saw 2 white guys walking
Yeah.
around trying to talk about kava, and he brought out a bowl of kava and he was like, "Hey, I'm mixing some kava right now. Do you want to drink some?" And so like people do drink it during the day, but personally, I'm more of like I like it at 10 o'clock at night. The
Okay.
house is quiet, like I can kind of like kava when you prepare it traditionally, it's very meditative. So you can sit there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and massage a strainer bag full of kava powder into some water, and that to me is almost just as beneficial as the kava itself, right? It's just like a time to unwind and to kind of like decompress from what's going on. And then when I finally do get to drink the kava, it is like, okay, all right, now I can really relax.
All
But
right.
there are people that take it in the morning, but there are people that take it during the day.
All right. Well, how would you explain like kava from start to finish for those that are unfamiliar? I'm sure there's people listening that are still like, what the hell is this? So, can you kind of
Yeah.
explain the whole process? Because you just mentioned the pounding down into, a powder.
Yeah, so kava has been consumed for 3,000 years throughout the South Pacific Ocean islands, right? So think about Fiji, Vanuatu, Samoa, Tonga, Hawaii. That sort of area of the world is the only place in the world where kava has ever been grown. It's a bush, And that bush has a root ball, and it's got lateral roots that shoot out from the sides. That root ball is what I call the stump. And that plus the lateral roots that shoot up from the sides have something in it called cavalactones. And cavalactones are the main sort of, and I call them active ingredients. It's not really an active ingredient. They're the main psychoactive compounds of kava. And there's 6 major ones that we measure every time I get a new batch of kava in. In those 6, 2 of them are very important to understand, especially for newbies. The first is called kavain. And when you think of kavain, think of like when you go to the dentist and you get Novocaine and how Novocaine numbs your mouth. Well, when you drink kava, kava will numb your mouth and it'll numb your throat just for a few minutes, right? But that is one of the main psychoactive compounds that's going to produce some sort of euphoria. The other one that you got to keep in mind is something called dihydromethicillin. And dihydromethicillin is the main compound that's associated with sedation and muscle relaxation and anti-inflammation. So a lot of folks on like the NFL are Polynesian. A lot of people know like Tua on the Dolphins or all over the place, man. Polys are huge in the NFL. And their favorite thing to do after a game is often to drink kava because it helps them relax mentally and physically, right? So this kava has been consumed as a sort of a tea for thousands of years by people like you and me who had a difficult day, whether that was out fishing or whether that was out in the fields, and they were able to have a cup of kava to relax. And that's really what it is. It's a very intense chamomile is how I kind of look at it.
You're not going to fail a drug test if you're taking kava, will you? Because I know you mentioned different properties, and I know, like myself, who's subject to random testing at work, this is unlike THC, where if you do have a job where you get tested, you don't have to worry about it with kava.
So for the most part, yes. So kava does have something that's a little bit funky. It's called bruxism, and bruxism is where you kind of clench your jaws. And it's not common. It's not super common, but it does happen every once in a while. Especially certain types of kava will do that. The reason that I bring that up is because there's one other substance that people associate bruxism with, and that's MDMA or ecstasy. And for some reason, I don't think that we really quite know, but cheap urine dip tests, they will sometimes pop for MDMA. But if you take that same sample and you send it to the lab and have them do like a proper test, it will not pop, right?
Okay.
So it is a risk, but you can also be like, hey, I know that says I'm on this stuff, but just send it to the lab for the real test, and it'll be just fine.
Okay, cool. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about kava?
Well, the primary one, if you Google search kava, the very first thing that you'll see is that kava will cause liver damage. And the reason for that is back in 2000, 2001, there was a German pharmaceutical company that bought kava from one farm on one island in Vanuatu that probably was not processed appropriately. They extracted it, they did an acetonic extraction, and then they sold that to consumers in Germany without doing any sort of lab testing, apparently, because it did kill 3 people and it injured, I want to say 90 more, something like that. And I don't want to downplay the death of people, right? Or the injury of people. But what I will say is that we've never seen that since. And in America, there's even a database called the FAERS database. It's the FDA's Adverse Event Reaction System. And it's where you can see all of the issues with different substances out there that are causing problems. If you look at Sprite, like the soda, that has like an insane amount of complaints compared to kava, right? Kava, millions of doses are consumed every single day here in the US. And the National Institute of Health, they say that there's less than 1 in a million chance that there is any sort of liver injury associated with kava. And so the vast majority of people in kava, all the scientists that I talked to, their main thesis or theory on that issue 25 years ago, which we have never seen since, is that it likely was a concentration of something called aflatoxins, which are hepatotoxic compounds that grow on tissues that are dying. So a lot of people actually have issues with aflatoxins in the peanut industry. If you look at aflatoxins online with peanuts, go look in the South in the U.S. Aflatoxins are a big problem. There was even a well, anyways, we don't have to get into that, but yeah. So it's not the kava that's the issue. It's when you process it incorrectly, you could have those issues. But every single major agricultural industry has the same problems, and the quick fix is you have to test your product, and
Yeah.
that's what I do just to
Yeah.
make sure that it's safe.
Well, and people listening to this, it's a beer show. They put far more worse things in their body for their livers than, you know, kava.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Was there like a specific gap in the market that you saw that made you think, you know what? I can do this better.
Yeah, so back when I first started getting into kava, there was not any I shouldn't say that. There was not a lot of good kava out there, right? And you can imagine kava's grown in countries where infrastructure is not quite great. You don't have clean water, you don't have power, you don't have roads, right? Like all these sort of basics that we take for granted here. And so when you would get kava into the US, a lot of times it was just not good from a quality perspective and dirty, right? And so I started working with the guy who started Kalm With Kava. I actually am not the guy who founded it. His name is Mike Munsell, and Mike was a good friend of mine. He's a great guy. He was kind of my kava guru. I'd always reach out to him and be like, "Hey, man, like, what do you think about this? How does kava grow? Like, does it look like that? Da, 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 da," right? And so he was always kind of the guy that taught me everything. And in 2020, unfortunately, he passed away. And so my buddy was gone, and his wife tried to run the company, but she couldn't. She had chronic health issues. And so one day she called me up. She said, "Morgan, I have to shut the company down." And I said, "No, the hell you're not. My buddy already died, and I'm not going to let his company die either, because that's kind of like that would have been like the final nail in the coffin. And I keep a picture of him here on my desk here at my office. At the office, I have a big picture of him behind me, right? Like he's kind of in everything that we do. But so he really started this engine, and he did it by going to the islands. He would go to Fiji, and he would go to Vanuatu, and he would go to Tonga, and he would meet these people that were not necessarily kava people. In fact, I don't think any of them were farming kava. They were many times kind of down on their luck and just looking for something else. And he told them, "Hey, look, if you start planting and growing and harvesting kava, I'll buy it from you." And they did. And he really made people's lives economically better with what he did. I cannot claim any credit for that. That was Mike. And those are the same people that we work with now. So we've been working with them for about 10 years, 10, 12 years, and growing our businesses together over in the South Pacific and here in the US.
You mentioned the sourcing of the kava. What else has been difficult or even more difficult, like educating consumers or getting retailers to listen? Because I'm sure that has to be difficult for something that's not well known.
Yeah, man, that is a difficult thing. Actually, I mean, all of it is difficult, right? For a while, I was going to venture capitalists just to kind of see. Um, this was back when Mike was still alive, and he asked me to look into some venture capitalist money for a part of the business. And so I started to talk to different VCs, and one of the major things that they all said, every single one of them, they said, "Well, what is the education cycle like for your customer? Like, how quickly will they buy it, right? Could they be in a store, they see it, and they just immediately buy it?" And I said, "No." If you look at like our analytics on our website, people research and they look all into all of what we've been talking about, right? The history of it, the culture of it, how people throughout Oceania have consumed it in all their different cultures, and then of course, the psychoactive effects, right? And they want to learn about it, and they want to really understand what's in their body. And so that was the very first thing that VC said was like, well, that's kind of not good for me, because they want something where people are just going to buy it immediately.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case. We have to educate our consumers, or else they won't understand what they're getting into.
We mentioned before we started recording, like yesterday, I went into Whole Foods. I'm like, all right, if any place that would have it, it would be Whole Foods. And, I'm looking around, I don't see anything. So finally, I have to ask. So I asked the woman, do you have anything with kava? And she kind of looked at me like, can you spell it? So then she's looking on, her tablet and then, showed me the one thing that they had, which was this tea from a competitor that while the tea itself was good, it didn't have the amount of kava that your products have. So, I mean, it's got to be hard too for like retailers. You got to get them on board. And how much of a struggle is that getting different retailers to carry it?
So I actually have not yet tried.
Okay.
I think this year is the year that we will try. And so I can follow up with you and let you know how
All
hard it
right.
is.
Sounds good. We'll make a date
But
for 2027. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But I do think that like it is so with Whole Foods and Sprouts, they tend to have like tinctures of kava in like a dropper bottle,
Yeah.
right? But as far as actual kava that you have to make yourself, I've never seen that in a big
Okay.
box store. Sometimes you'll see it in like a mom and pop health food shop, right? But it's just not I feel like I mean, I might offend a bunch of people here, but I feel like Whole Foods or Sprouts, like oftentimes it's people that the people that shop there are people that like to be seen shopping. At least in the area where I'm at, there's a Whole Foods in Scottsdale, Arizona. Scottsdale is very well known for having people that are they're a hoity-toity type
Yeah.
folk, and so they really like to be seen there, right? And so I don't necessarily know how interested they would be in a muddy medicinal dirt water that kava is, but I think it can benefit everyone, but they just have to be again educated about it.
Well, since, right now we're not in retail, where can people pick up Kalm with Kava?
So we have a website, calmwithkava.com. It's Calm with a K. We also are on Amazon, and so you can check us out there. All of our socials, Calm with Kava on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube. We put out a lot of content about our farming systems out in Hawaii. So I also own a farm on the Big Island of Hawaii, where we farm kava and sugarcane and taro and lychee, and then we also help our farmers out in like Tonga. Like the other day, I got a text message from our Tongan supplier, and they said, "Hey, uh, in Hawaii, they saw some of our plants. They said, "Hey, do you do it this way or that way?" Right? So we can like kind of collaborate on like how do we best grow this stuff,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of cool stuff. But so we talk about all that on all of our socials and our website and like how we do things, and so it's fun if you're a kava nerd like me.
Yeah. Well, you on your website, Calm with Kava, once again, that's with the K, you have a ton of different products and different ways for a consumer to enjoy kava. What would you suggest for someone like me or someone listening who's just getting their feet wet?
The first thing I would always say to people is you got to try the traditional kava, right? I want people to actually make it themselves. And I recognize that a lot of people say, well, I don't have 10 minutes to spare every day. I would counter that and I would say you should really make 10 minutes, whether it's with kava or just sort of being by yourself and not having a phone in front of your face.
Yeah.
That 10 minutes is really important to decompress and unwind. That's like the number one thing I realized when I was going through my really dark kind of issues, right? Was I realized that I just needed time to just think. And I think a lot of people don't give themselves that. So the first thing I'd say is traditional kava. That means that you take the kava, you put it into a strainer bag, you add water into a bowl, and you sort of massage that strainer bag into the bowl with the water, and it releases all of the kava lactones in a suspension. So those starches, they'll kind of settle at the bottom of the bowl, and you mix up the bowl with like a ladle or something like that, and you pour your shell of kava, and you have between 4 to 6 shells of kava every single night, or not every single night, whenever you want it. And then the other options that we have are things like micronized or instant kava, where you don't have to sit there and prepare it. You can just mix it right into water. That's a huge seller for us. And then we also have gummies. So those are especially great in an airport or traveling or whatever. And we also have tinctures bottles as well. So like you can, throw a couple drops underneath your tongue and be on your way.
Like you mentioned, like massaging, is this done with like a mortar and pestle type device, or what type of?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
Yeah, just with your hands, right?
okay,
So you're literally just taking your hands, you're just kind of squeezing it and
okay.
messing around with the bag
All
and
right,
basically agitating all the starches out
got it.
of the bag into the water.
All right, well, that's cool. See, I had in my head like boiling water for tea, so I'm like, all right, well, how are you doing this?
Yeah, nope, nope,
Yeah.
just room temperature water. No need,
All right.
no need to boil it.
Well, for me, like, I went through dry January and I'm cutting back on alcohol. And a lot of beer drinkers, they're not like quitting alcohol per se, they're just drinking differently. Is that kind of who you're seeing now that are coming to Cava looking for something different?
It's a smattering of people, right? Like it's everyone under the sun. Some people are exactly like that, where they're just like, I want to drink a little bit less, which is great, right? Because if you know that, especially as we get older, right, and alcohol affects us a little bit more, or at least the negative aspects of alcohol affect us a little bit more. A lot of people are going, okay, well, I want to relax tonight, but I don't want to pay for it in the morning,
Yeah.
right? And so that's a lot of folks. Um, so I basically have two different demographics. It's like a 40-60 split with females to males. So men love kava much more generally, and it's the folks that are maybe 40 plus, though, the types that are just trying to reduce their alcohol consumption in general, that's what they're going for. Anything underneath 40, I'm 38, so I'm square within that millennial space. The vast majority of people that I know, not the vast majority of people, many people that I know just straight up don't drink alcohol. They just don't want it, right? And of course, they're going to THC, they're going to, you know, ketamine and all sorts of crazy things. Right? Personally, they're a little bit crazy to me because
Yeah.
I'm like, I just want something that's going to be relaxing, but I don't want to get out of my mind. I don't want to be in another dimension. I don't want to be on the ceiling. Like I just want to chill out for a little bit. But that's what like the younger generation is doing. They're not really drinking as much. They're consuming other things, and so kava's a part of that.
Well, how have you balanced growth within the company while staying true to the roots and the culture of Kava?
It's a hard one to balance because kava culturally is super super important to the South Pacific people. It has really created their civilizations in a lot of ways. You want to go marry the girl next door, you bring kava over to her home. You want to go do a political deal, you go bring kava to them and you drink it together. You have issues with the neighboring village, you go bring them kava and you drink kava together. And so and it's in all sorts of like you look at Hawaii Olelo, it's the Hawaiian language, right? They have all sorts of these old stories and chants, and they talk about where kava came from. They say, "Oh, well, we're in Hawaii, but it came from Samoa and Tahiti." Like they know where kava came from. They know where like their people came from, and kava was a canoe plant, and so it's really important to all of these cultures. And so, as a white guy coming from the British Islands, not the South Pacific Islands, right? I hold a very weird space, right? Because I don't want to be the guy that's going to be like taking anything from the culture. I want to make sure that I'm contributing, if anything, and that I can just help support it, right? Whatever that might be, right? And that's always been a question. And every single day on social media, I get comments from all sorts of people that are like, "Oh, a white guy selling kava," right? Like over and over and over again, and not nice ways. I said it to you in a very nice way,
Yeah.
but just this morning I woke up and I just saw a comment. I just thought, "Geez, Louise, man!" Like I understand the issue, but I also understand that if you look at the economics of the South Pacific Islands, most of these places are so remote. They have no economic opportunity. And what they're doing is they need money for their kids to send them to school, to afford tuition, to afford like you know clothes for their schooling. Sometimes they need to build a home, right? And so they need construction materials, and they don't want to make a home out of wood anymore. And so they want actual concrete. Well, you have to buy that, right? They have to have money, right? And so the majority of folks there, they don't necessarily need the money in the way that you or I need money, but they need money to improve their lives. And the things that they have to improve their lives, it's kava.
Yeah.
That's what they do. Kava is 55 to 60% of the GDP of Vanuatu. It is a massive industry there. In Fiji, it contributes to between 5 and 10% of their export revenue. So you're talking about massive sums of money that are going into the pockets of people that are growing 5 to 10 to 15 kava plants in their backyard. They
Yeah.
use it as a savings account, right? And so, when I see comments like that, it makes me really sad because what these people don't understand is that throughout the South Pacific, this and people like me are helping to contribute to people across the world, across these oceans, to help them improve themselves economically in a dramatic way. There's guys rolling around the jungle in the middle of nowhere. I've seen it with brand new trucks.
Yeah.
Like they're it's like, and they're paying cash. And so I just think like when you talk about like, making sure that we respect the culture, we absolutely do, right? That's why I'm talking to you about it. When you asked me what kava was, I said it's been used for 3,000 years throughout Melanesia and Polynesia. It's been used throughout Vanuatu and Hawaii and Fiji and all these different places because I want to make sure that people understand where it came from, who brought it to us, and how they've been doing it. And so as a white guy, that's all I can do. I can tell you about the history and the culture. You can go to them and to learn a whole lot more, but I can give you a primer and I can support them financially.
Well, outside of the negative ones, what other
Uh,
kind of feedback and stories have stuck with you?
you know what? Thank you for pointing that out
Yeah.
because sometimes it's really easy to
Yeah.
focus on the negative. I don't get tons of negative stuff,
Yeah.
but I do get it often, right? But as far as positive, man, I'll tell you what, there's some of the most beautiful people on the planet. I was just up in Salt Lake the other day. Salt Lake has one of the largest Polynesian populations in the US. And the way they just accept people and talk to people, and when they're sitting around the kava bowl together talking and connecting, they're so lovely. They're like just really incredible people. And when you go to the islands and you talk to them and they'll show you everything, there's people you don't even know and they go, "Hey, do you want to come over for dinner?" You go, I don't know you.
Yeah.
Maybe, it's just different, right? They're like the kindest, nicest people ever. I know when I first got into this, I heard someone say, "Oh man, Vanuatu, that's a little scary." And so I thought, well, that's odd. I've traveled a lot throughout the world, and so I've experienced many different cultures, and so I thought when I go to Vanuatu, boy, this is going to be something. And it was National Geographic. It was, but they were the nicest, kindest people I've ever met, and I cannot wait to bring my kids
Yeah.
because it's that kind of a place. It's just people who really love life and want to share it and, are just I mean, they're the best.
Yeah.
They're the best.
Just you saying that reminds me of watching like old Anthony Bourdain episodes where he'd go into all these places like you and I would never think about going to until we see that and you see how cool the people are and just the ritual of sitting down, enjoying a cover, enjoying a meal, beverage, whatever. Like that's really cool. That's what as soon as you mentioned that, Anthony Bourdain popped in my head.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, they're legitimately like, that's the perfect, comparison, man. Like, Anthony Bourdain doing his thing out wherever he was, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that, like, I struggle with sometimes. It's like, it's hard to remember that, like, there are good people all around the
Yeah.
world, and they're super nice, and they just wanna hang out, you know?
Yeah.
And that's no different over there either.
Well, here in the States, like craft beer, when it started, they leaned hard into the community aspect. How are you kind of building that same sense around Kalm with Kava in like Kava communities here in the States?
So there's a lot of kava communities throughout the U.S. You would probably be surprised if you're in a metropolitan area. There's a good chance if you go on Google Maps and you search for kava bar, there will be a kava bar near you. Actually, whereabouts are you?
Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. Okay.
Yeah.
I was born in Highland Park.
Oh, very
Hey.
good. There you go.
Uh, but I'm not really sure if there's any in Chicago. There might be. I would
Yeah.
Google it and just check it out. There's about I would guess between 500 and 600 kava bars throughout the U.S., and they are building local communities of people that, are looking to not drink alcohol and looking for that space to kind of hang out with their friends without having that sort of that experience, right? And they're a little different, right? A lot of them are sort of kind of Polynesian vibes, which kind of makes sense. And they're fostering a lot of people that really just need a place to go that isn't going to focus so much on alcohol. As far as Kalm With Kava, we sell a lot of kava to kava bars, and we also, we have a very large online presence, right? So people want to come hang out. Sometimes we'll do these like virtual kava kind of sessions where we all kind of hang out online, and we're all scattered throughout the U.S., but we like to hang out and drink kava together. And yeah, so that's what we do.
Well, as you said that, I'm like, well, let me Google right now.
Yeah,
And it's an apothecary that I go to, but it says it listed as the first place. But so I'm sure I could pick it up there. And they do have like three that are within 5 miles. Now, one just looks like a bar. It's called Lizard's Liquid Lounge, but there are places not that far from me in Chicago that are kava bars. So I'm looking
yeah,
forward to checking those out.
awesome. Yeah, sounds great.
Well, Morgan, I really appreciate you taking time out of your morning to chat with Kava. I'm looking forward to trying it later on today, which I'll put out on video. And I'm really stoked. I'm stoked about, trying this, trying something different. Hopefully it like helps me unwind at night. I work customer service, so sometimes you need to chill a little bit. So I'm looking forward to that. But I do appreciate it so much. Once again, you got to check out their website, Kalm with Kava. That's with the K. I'll include the link in the show notes. If you do search for them on Amazon, make sure you include the Kalm with the K, because I was searching on Amazon and I found some similar things that weren't them. So make sure you definitely do Kalm with a K. But Morgan, I do appreciate it so much, brother. I thank you so much for taking time out today.
I really appreciate you having me on and talking about this strange plant that no one seems to know a whole lot about, because I'm a kava nerd and I like to turn other people into kava nerds. So thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. All right. So I tried some of the kava, sent over some gummy bears. Those were good. That helped me rest. I did a video when I put a video out of the three different kinds of kava. I wanted to try like the instant one because that was quicker for video. So I want to talk about it now. It's more of a lengthy process, and for an audio podcast, you don't really need to hear me clinking the glass as I'm stirring this in. So I made it according to the direction. So it's 1 tablespoon per 8 ounces of water. Stirred it up. It looked earthy and it tasted earthy, not in a horrible way, but if you're not accustomed to something like that, it might not be your thing, or you might have to doctor it up and put it in something besides plain water like I did. I did notice right away, like fairly quick, a nice calming little buzz. So that part was enjoyable. I had it maybe an hour before bedtime. I slept like a champion. So that part is really good. I'm going to do more videos like of the more traditional style, like we were talking about on the interview. But once again, that's a lengthy process. No one wants to watch a video of me squeezing a bag. So I'll do a video of that, kind of do some editing and discuss that on a future video. But I will say, for me, I liked the little buzz. That was cool. and I loved the solid sleep. So if that's something that interests you, I definitely would try Kalm with Kava, put it in the cart, give it a whirl. Like I said, the taste is earthy. So I'm telling you right now, if that's something that's not your thing, you might not want to try it, but you can get over it. We drink Malort here. If we could drink Malort, you could drink this. So don't worry about it. But no, I'm a fan of Kalm with Kava. All right, the beer that's in front of me now is a collaboration between two great Illinois breweries. Phase 3, they're out of Lake Zurich in Old Irving, which is close to me on Montrose in the city of Chicago. This is a collaboration beer called Pixelated Beezer. It's a double dry hopped, hazy IPA, 8% alcohol. This came out just a couple days ago. I had to grab it and I tried it. It's absolutely spectacular. So I wanted to talk about it here on the podcast. Now, they use 4 different types of Citra hops and 4 different types of Mosaic hops. So you can't go wrong. You got, 8 different types of hops in there. So without further ado, let's crack open the Pixelated Beezer. It's a very nice, light color, definitely hazy, good couple fingers of foam on this. That aroma is spectacular. You get a lot of you get like tropical notes. The can says blueberry, guava, and orange. I after reading that, I could definitely see that, and I could get all 3 of those. Yeah, definitely. The orange hits me like the most predominant out of the aroma, but it smells spectacular. Like I said, it smells great. That is such a great beer. Wonderful flavor, great mouthfeel. Definitely get all those aroma notes out of the taste. Just hit you right up front. Great, great beer. It's got a good finish to it. I mean, there's nothing I could say bad about this beer. A little bitterness towards the end. I mean, both beers, the Pixel Density from Phase 3, Beezer from Old Irving are both great on its own. This is, wow, absolutely just wow. Now, I picked this up at Old Irving. I'm sure you could get it at Phase 3 as well. I'm not sure about distribution, but if you're in the Illinois area, you definitely have to grab it, pick it up, put it in the cart. That's going to wrap things up for this edition of Beer in Front. I thank you very much for listening. I want to thank Morgan Smith from Kalm with Kava for coming on the show. It was interesting to learn more about something that I really knew nothing about. So thanks to Morgan for coming on. Check out their website, kalmwithkava.com. Have a great week. I'll talk to you next week. And remember, sometimes the beer in front of you is the best one yet.